G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. Let's go. Am I the asshole for uninviting my mother to my wedding after she invited father-in-law? My fiancée, 29 female, and me, 34 male, are getting married in 2 weeks after 13 years of friendship and 4 years of dating. She's fantastic, and our relationship has been so good for the both of us. Planning the wedding has been uncomplicated and fun. We included my mother a lot. For example, my fiancé took her dress shopping. The reason is that my fiancé has always had a good relationship with my parents, and it grew much closer over the past year after her mother died. They kind of see her as another child, and I know that fiancé appreciates that immensely. As for my fiancé's father, she went no contact when she was 15. Even before that, he hadn't played an important role in her life. His behavior was one cause in her having depression and low self-esteem, and it took her years to heal. She's happy with the way things are now. I never met the man, so neither of us considered inviting him to the wedding. My mother, however, won't understand why we won't invite him. Mom is a retired psychologist. She's had some experience with child-parent reunification, and she thinks my fiancé needs that, even more after my fiancé's mum's death. Fiancé and I both shut my mum down plenty of times. We both made it clear that this man was not to know anything about my fiancé's life, nor would be welcome anywhere near the wedding. For a while, my mum shut up. My mum doesn't know fiancé's father. The other night we had dinner with my family, and my mum had an announcement. Apparently she looked my fiancé's father up and went to see him. Then she invited him to our wedding. She seemed so pleased. My family was appalled and angry. They all know what has happened. My fiancé somehow remained calm and told Mum how inappropriate that was, how Mum hurt my fiancé terribly by overstepping this one boundary that she ever had, how fiancé had lost all her trust in Mum after this. I then uninvited my Mum and we left. Fiancé only broke down at home. My mother's also been inconsolable since and called me dozens of times, but I haven't picked up yet. Fiancé feels unsafe to have the wedding if there was a chance that her father might show up. We might just cancel the whole thing. My father, who is not condoning any of my mother's actions, thinks that I should talk to Mum and hear her out. My siblings agree that uninviting her was too drastic. I just see the distress my mother had caused my fiancé, and I get angry all over again. So, am I the asshole for sticking to our decision? In the comments, not the asshole. She may be a retired psychologist, but she showed the emotional intelligence of soggy bread. What a huge violation of your fiancé's boundaries. I was shocked when OP revealed that his mother was a retired psychologist specializing in family reunification. Even I know that an emotional day like a wedding isn't the time to start getting reacquainted. OP replies, she specialized in child psychology. My fiancé has once said that maybe my mother doesn't realize how much situations might change with age. Fiancé said that she'd been open to reconciliation when she was younger, but that it's too late now. Still no excuse in my opinion. Sheesh, your mum must have been a crap psychologist to do what she did. Not the asshole, but if I were your fiancé, I would expect you to go no contact or it'd be over. Psychologists are like doctors. 1. All of their education won't erase their biases, and in fact, probably reinforced some of them and created new ones. And 2, many a health practitioner's ability to be objective goes out the window when it comes to family, and they become cartoonishly bad at their job. Not the asshole. Cancel the wedding and go and elope instead. That kind of betrayal would be enough for me to consider going no contact with my mum. It wasn't just a small mistake or an oversight, it was a deliberate action to trample boundaries and to push an agenda that you have made very clear you and your fiancé have no desire to pursue. As a retired psychologist, your mother should have known better than anyone just how damaging the actions she chose would be to your fiancé, and to any existing relationship between the both of you and herself. I wonder what people expect from stunts like this. And even if your mum's a psychologist, is she your fiancé's psychologist? What kind of psychologist would do this to a patient? So honestly, not the asshole. Maybe hear her out? I would do with my mum, but I'd stick to the uninvitation if she thinks she can wreak havoc knowingly. and tell her that she can be glad to be just uninvited from your wedding and not your whole life. Horrible behavior right there. OP replies, I suppose she expected gratitude and maybe that having a second parent would help fiancé grieve her mum better. She often thinks she knows what's best for her children. She, however, never trampled boundaries to this extent before. Until now, it's been limited to advice and recommendations, so I don't know how to deal with all of it. Back up to the post, we have an edit. This really blew up, didn't it? Thank you all for your advice and perspective. It's truly heartbreaking how many of you have estranged relatives and can relate to this. I'm sorry. I met my dad earlier. He is really sorry for what my mum did and how he'd pushed me to listen to her at first. I told him that my fiancée was the person hurt in this, that it was really up to her. Dad did offer to cover additional costs that we might have now. Both siblings called individually to apologize to fiancé as well. I don't know what to make of it just now. It is a good start, I think. I haven't talked to mum though. Also, my fiancé's brother-in-law had a good idea regarding the wedding. We might do it earlier. That way we'd at least keep the venue. We're still figuring details out, but it might actually work. And now, on to the update. This is the update to my first post, since a bunch of people asked for one. First, thanks for all the helpful comments, insights, and awards. We were very overwhelmed and grateful. The biggest thing is, we are married. In the end, my wife's sister and brother-in-law saved the day. Originally, the wedding was on the 18th at brother-in-law's restaurant. That was the date and place where we went from friends to dating 5 years ago. On the day of the OP, wife went to go see her sister, and they suggested having the wedding a week earlier, on the 11th. It felt like the best option. Brother-in-law was willing to do the work because wife is like a sister to him. His team and him got a generous tip from my dad. Wife, sister-in-law, brother-in-law, and I told all the guests, save my family, of the date change. Wife didn't want to tell people why. Amazingly, everyone made it work except for 3 people. My family was told the morning of the wedding just to make sure wife's father would not have time to come to the wedding as he lives 15 hours away from us. My family didn't complain because they knew that they messed up. It was all a bit stressful, but my wife felt like a spy on a mission, and she had fun with it. I was glad to see her get excited again, and there was no sign of her father at the wedding, so I guess Mum finally listened. In the week before the wedding, we met my family to talk several times. These were long talks. Why my mum did it? She just thought she knew better. No excuses other than arrogance. They all apologized. My wife said one family torn apart by her father's actions was enough. She insisted that they were invited, so that was that. However, we made it clear that contact with her father would be punished much harder in the future, especially when it comes to children. It's forgiven but not forgotten, I guess. As to what my wife's father found out from my mum, apparently not much. He knew a bunch already from my wife's eldest brother. Mum filled in gaps. That brother is the only of my wife's siblings that was still in touch with their father. Brother and wife were on thin ice before that already, for many but different reasons. Yes, we let that brother attend the wedding, mostly because we didn't want more drama. But we'll tackle that when wife feels ready to do so. We did have a honeymoon to get to first. All in all, I think we are fine. Wife is very hurt still, more so by her brother's actions now. With my family, we'll work on it. The imminent threat is dealt with. Now we start fixing the damage. Through it all, my wife was amazingly calm and reflected. It made me much more grateful that I get to be with her. In the comments, was your mum's apology, in your opinion, genuine, or was it an, I'm sorry, but... Also, I'm glad that it all worked out. Congrats on the wedding, and all the best to you and your wife. And OP replies, from what we could tell, it was genuine. I suppose my initial uninvitation made her take a look at her actions and blew some sense into her. The best result you can expect from this situation. If your wife is okay with giving your mum another chance, make sure to let your mum know that she is on thin ice. Congrats! I love your wife's comment, one family torn up by my father's actions is enough, and that being the impetus for moving forward with forgiveness. May you have many years of wedded bliss. As someone who has been happily married for 23 years, we have 2 rules. 1. Never go to bed angry with each other, as sometimes you just need to say, I love you, and we'll see how we feel about things when we're not tired. Typically, you forget why you were fighting in the first place. 2. Never sleep apart because you're upset with one another. Cracks in a marriage are like a sidewalk, in that they only get bigger over time, so you need to provide constant maintenance. Again, congrats, and again, not the asshole. Always with the forced reconciliations, and at a wedding too, no less. How is that supposed to work? Oh hey everyone, before the bride comes out, we just gotta quickly get a decade or so of emotions and issues out of the way, so dad can walk her down the aisle. I cannot think of a worse time and place to pull this crap, but some idiots love their Hallmark moments, I guess. Our next post is titled, I never want to have sex again, like ever, but I do not want to lose or hurt my husband. I've been struggling with this for over a year. I, 29 female, am married to a man who we shall call John, 30. I saw other posts on here of others in a similar spot, and I have done a few things over the last year or so. I have been to doctors, therapists, asked around online about solutions, but my sex drive is just flat dead. Nothing brings it back. Nobody has had any answers, yet. I'm in perfect shape, and so is he. I haven't lost love or physical attraction. No body dysmorphia, hormonal levels are fine. I am not on hormonal birth control. I don't take any other medications. I tried stupid online bullcrap and snake oil, but I think deep down I knew that stuff was never going to work. We have been together for 7 years, married 3. We are happy and have a good home and good careers, 3 wonderful dogs, and our families get along. But I just cannot stomach the idea of ever having sex again. It makes my skin crawl thinking about it. I've either been making excuses to put it off, or just grinning and bearing it when he was clearly just riled up, and I didn't have the heart to look him in the eye and say, ew. I literally have a cry the next time I am alone. I was his first, but he wasn't my first. I taught him how to be my lover. Everything was fine for over 5 years. John is considerate, takes his time, made sure we both had fun and felt satisfied. I feel so awful even considering talking to him about it. Before last year, we had done it nearly every day. Over the last year, though, my sex drive has slowly died. I think that I just do not want to have sex ever again. Is that so odd? Why is that so wrong? How do I approach this with John? I plan to sit him down on our next day off together, which is in 5 days. I have that long to decide what to do. I can't do this to him or myself any longer than that. Is it right for me to unilaterally cut that part of our relationship out? I do not think so, but everyone says that I shouldn't be forced to do it just to keep my marriage, which sounds like crap based on the posts here. I know sex is important. I don't know what to do next. He has been completely in the dark on this because I'm scared of divorce. I don't want him to think that I don't love him or think he's unattractive. I'm scared to hurt my best friend. I don't want him to resent me or to feel trapped. Just any advice, please. I feel like I'm about to burn our entire lives down. In the comments, you must communicate this to him. He needs to be able to choose between you and a dead bedroom or moving on. You are certainly within your rights to not want to have sex again. You don't have the right to choose that for John. There's a third option, for him to have a hall pass for sexual relations only, but that's very tricky. That only works if John is not monogamous. Personally, I believe that all hall passes are a trap that lead to jealousy and a bunch of other small relationship problems that build up and become a lot. If you can do it, it's a great compromise, but it's only a great compromise if you are personally okay with your husband sleeping with others. If this even slightly vexes you, imagine how it'll feel after a tough day at work, traffic on the way home, and the Starbucks messed up your order, and you pull home to find your car has a flat, and then your husband tells you that he has a friend coming over later, or whatnot. Have you considered seeing a sex therapist? Had the same thought. Situations like this is why they exist. There's nothing wrong about it. If you don't want sex, it's fine. It's not fine to not tell your husband because you're afraid of a divorce. It's good that you're planning to tell him, but just as it's valid that the thoughts of sex is repulsive to you, it is equally valid that he wants to have sexual fulfillment. This makes you incompatible. No matter how much love there is between two people, if their needs are incompatible, it cannot work out. Even if he tolerates it for a few years, like you've been tolerating this for a year, it'll only lead to unhappiness and resentment. Allow him the freedom to make his choice. And now, onto the update. I decided to talk to him sooner rather than later, and took a few days off from work to sort this out. I think he might have left me over the lying to him for a year part. I am mostly just venting, but if you have thoughts, by all means. I do not think there is anything I can do alone to fix this. John wasn't angry at first, but made it clear that he would not support being in a sexless marriage. He was also a bit annoyed that I asked if he would be okay sleeping with others. He's one of those people that are super honest, and he holds to his values quite strongly, which is one of the many things that I respect about him. There was a lot of emotions. He walked around the neighborhood a few times and would come back in and ask questions and then leave again. He goes on walks to clear his head. This is not strange. He was angry after I told him how long I had kept this to myself, and to be clear, he asked for a timeline. I told him about the doctors, snake oil, and the therapy. I knew he was going to be mad, but John was red and absolutely effing silent. I've only seen him genuinely mad once before, and it quite literally paralyzed me to have him look at me that way. John has never and will never hurt me, but he never made me feel small or vulnerable. His size always made me feel safe, but in that moment I felt different. He just walked away, got his laptop bag, and said he was going to a friend's house. I have a feeling that I know which one, but I didn't have a chance to ask. I have not heard back from him since he left 2 days ago. I called and texted, but he didn't answer me directly. Instead, I got a call from his older sister. She asked me to just leave him be and let him work stuff out for the moment. At least I know he's somewhere safe. She asked me what I did to upset him so much, and I, foolishly, told her the truth. That went just swell. I completely needed my ass chewed because that can only help, right? Sarcasm, in case that's not obvious. At this point, I just want him to come home. He has been the perfect partner, and I just want him to talk to me. He doesn't deserve this. I should have never kept anything to myself. We have a king-sized effing bed that I am sleeping in alone. The dogs are clearly confused, sleeping by the door because I am the only one feeding and walking them instead of both of us. My plan, assuming he goes along with it, is suggesting couples therapy. That's all I got. In the comments, let him process this. It's a lot. It really is. If my wife came to me and told me she'd been bearing it, and that sex with me made her skin crawl, as she said in the previous post, for a year, I'd feel effing insane. Like he's going to feel like a goddamn predator. I would feel like I had been unknowingly assaulting my wife for a year. I'd be furious too. Like, she's put him in the worst possible position here by just refusing to be honest with him. This is the reason. My husband recently overheard me telling someone that way back when I had postpartum depression, I had to stop Prozac after a few months because it killed my libido and made my skin crawl. Now, my husband and I have always had an awesome sex life that I greatly enjoy. He was still devastated, truly distraught at the thought that I was grinning and bearing it for a few months 15 years ago. I assured him that I liked the closeness and it felt good once I warmed up, which was true by the way. If you're going to tell your husband you don't want sex anymore, that's one thing, but you can't tell a man who cares about you that all the sex you've had for a year has been unwanted and skin-crawlingly awful. That's cruel and completely breaks any trust. He's going to think, what else have you been faking and lying about? I can attest to this. I was personally told recently that my significant other dealt with it and just used it to get that physical satisfaction, and that it had been going on like that for a while. I'm still pretty reeled back about it and can't help but feel like I was being used. Based on what you say are his strong values about monogamy, you've given him a deal breaker. You've also told him that you felt this way for a year, which means every time y'all were intimate, he was under the impression that you were an enthusiastically willing participant. He needs time to process, and really, you should assume that there is no coming back from this. And by bringing up an open relationship, her husband probably thinks that she doesn't want him anymore, but has someone else in mind. And now onto the final update. He is leaving, but clearly trying to burn my life down on the way out. So John has decided to leave. Divorce proceedings are already messy because John challenged our prenup in court, and it was found to be unconscionable by the judge because I had violated it by telling him to basically cheat if he ever wants sex again. I had no idea that he had even hired a lawyer, so I showed up alone and unprepared. Why isn't anyone in this whole thing seeing that I am miserable and don't want him to leave at all? I do not understand why having sex is such a big deal for him. We did so many other things together, and just because I don't want to do one of them anymore, it is all over. Whatever happened to consent? Now we have to fight over the house, dogs, and he's even going after business assets. We could have had an easy split, but he has decided to be petty instead. My only option to protect the business that I started during college is to use lawyers he could never afford. Our entire life has turned to crap, and I'm struggling to find out why I'm having to suffer for this. In the comments, you are absolutely in your right to not have sex ever again if you don't want to, but it's a very important part of most typical sexual and romantic relationships. You're being unfair in asking for understanding, but giving none. I'm sorry he's being petty. Clearly, he is very hurt, but you can't shirk all responsibility for the demise of your relationship simply because it's your right to not consent/never want sex again. I also understand that you don't want the divorce and are fully content and satisfied with all the other parts of your marriage, but you took the physical out of the relationship without his consent, so he is choosing to leave, and being a jerk about it. I do hope you find a loving partner who is interested in a romantic, asexual relationship. You deserve to find someone who wants what you want. I thought this was a little funny, but OP knew what she was doing with the matches, gasoline, and Tinder, just didn't expect the garage fire to consume the house. This was OP's last comment on her first post. Just any advice, please. I feel as though I'm about to burn our entire lives down, and OP's title on latest post, he is leaving but clearly trying to burn my life down on the way out. I wonder why her sex drive has just vanished. I know she said she's tried everything, but it's one thing for your libido to go down with age and a steady partner, and it's another to be disgusted at even the thought of sex with your husband, especially one she clearly loves. I feel like there is a giant missing reason here. Agree. It wasn't even her sex drive vanishing, she is sex repulsed. It's one thing to not have a sex drive and still want it, like me after I had a baby but got back there, but to swing so wildly to be sex repulsed, there is something else going on. Yeah, I'm really curious about that too. It sounds very similar to how I felt about sex for a few months postpartum. I wonder if her hormones actually aren't fine and she's just had crap doctors, since that's pretty common with women's health. Oh god, imagine if everything could have worked out fine with a full-spectrum hormone battery and a few pills or a smidgen of testosterone gel. Yep, I have seen many women who have had their hormones checked by their primary care physician and everything's fine, but then when they go to a hormone specialist and get treated, their sex lives improve dramatically. I've considered it myself because my libido tanked earlier this year and it felt like it was 100% due to hormones. However, my PCP says I'm in perfect health and my hormones are fine. I'm worried that a hormone specialist might be snake oil or a waste of money, so I haven't done it yet. My doctor is a gynecologist specialist and said that you can't do blood test work for hormones alone because they dip and rise over the period of an hour. I initially saw a male doctor before this female gynecologist joined our practice, and he did bloods and said I was fine. 18 months later, when this female doctor arrived, and she looked at my estrogen levels done previously by my male doctor, and said that based upon the reading, she wasn't sure how I was still sane because, I can't recall the numbers, but say for example, they should have been 1,000, they read like 109 and were so low. Albeit, you can't go off bloods alone, the reading should have caused some concern, so I had suffered unnecessarily for 18 months until she arrived and fixed me. And that's where I'm going to end today's episode, guys. I do hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.